Welcome back to the Deep Dive. So every year, right as the new year kicks off, the online book community just dives headfirst into what I like to call the annual plague.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. The reading stats are.
Yes, it's always the same. Is an audiobook really reading? How on earth did you read 300 books? It's exhausting.
It's totally predictable. It's almost like background noise at this point.
Yeah?
But what was so shocking, what really took me by surprise, was the debate that flared up in late 2025. And, it's still going strong now in early 2026.
Oh, right. It wasn't the usual argument. This is something that had always been sort of simmering,
Yeah.
But this time it exploded.
It took over everything. It was the main conversation.
Absolutely. And when I started seeing it everywhere, from the really literary corners of Twitter to the most commercial, like book talk trends, I knew something foundational was being debated.
And that debate was this really vehement, almost moral call to essentially outlaw negative reviews.
And DNF list. Don't forget that part. The did not finish list.
That's right. The rhetoric was just so strong. The main argument you saw again and again was that posting any kind of negative content, whether it was a worst books of the year list or just saying you quit a book.
They called it lazy content.
The lazy content, spreading negativity, and the big one, the one that really had the sting, was hurting authors.
And that right there, that changes the whole conversation, doesn't it? It's not about whether a book is good or bad anymore.
No, not at all. It shifts from an aesthetic critique, a discussion of the art, to this conversation about moral duty and financial harm.
It's basically saying your first job as a reviewer isn't to your audience, it's to protect the creator. And that's where we need to dig. And this whole thing really got traction because of one specific catalyst.
The ARC controversy, advanced reader copies.
This was the moment it all crystallized. An author came out and said very publicly, very firmly, that if you get an ARC, you should not be giving that book a star rating of 3 stars.
3 stars.
I know. Let's just pause on that. For most of us who read a lot, what is a 3-star review?
I liked it. It was fine. It was a decent book. It's the definition of a perfectly competent, middle-of-the-road read.
Exactly. So to demand that reviewers hide any feedback that suggests a book is just competent. It shows a complete misunderstanding of what an ARC is even for.
Or maybe a deliberate reframing of its purpose.
Let's break that down then. What is a traditional point of an ARC? They go out to reviewers, to booksellers.
And it's all about testing the waters. It's about getting honest, diverse opinions before the book officially comes out.
Right. It's market research, basically.
For sure. It's partly for marketing to get some early buzz, but publishers genuinely use that feedback. If, 80% of your early readers say the pacing dies in the middle, that's incredibly valuable. It's not an attack.
But this author's take just reframed the whole thing into a promotional contract. They were saying anything less than 4 stars is spreading negativity for no reason.
That it was directly hurting sales. And they even used the word bullies, calling reviewers bullies for not giving a glowing review.
It just turns the whole system into a machine for guaranteed positive content. The ARC stops being a tool for feedback and just becomes, an obligation.
A non-negotiable favor.
Exactly. So that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to unpack the value, the actual utility of negative reviews and DNS discussions in a media landscape that is just screaming for positivity at all costs.
Okay, let's get into it. Section 1, the culture of selective positivity.
I feel like I have to start with my own experience here because it's probably where a lot of people are coming from. I am, and I'll admit it, a bit of a people pleaser.
Oh.
And I have definitely censored myself when talking about a really popular book.
Oh, 100%.
I've absolutely been nicer than I felt. Not because my mind was changed, but because I was afraid of the backlash.
That's a totally rational response. It's a defense mechanism. In these online spaces that are so full of strong opinion, you learn pretty quickly to either sugarcoat your feelings or just say nothing at all if you didn't like.
And we all know the get out of jail free card, the go-to phrase.
Let me guess. I totally see why other people like it, but...
That's the one. It just wasn't for me.
Right. It's like a linguistic smoke bomb. You're validating the majority opinion, saying, I see your joy, but then you frame your own critique failing.
Yeah, you're not saying this book was flawed. You're saying I was flawed for not liking, even when, deep down, the book had real structural problems.
We've all become experts at soft blow, but here's the really frustrating part, the thing that makes this whole culture so tricky, this toxic positivity, it is so selectively enforced.
It's a massive double standard.
It really is, because on one hand, negativity is actively encouraged when the community has collectively decided something is bad.
Oh yeah, if everyone agrees a book is terrible, you get points for dunking on it. It's like, go on, drink that haterade. Let's all dogpile on it.
That's the safe space for being critical. You get to feel smart and part of the in-crowd by hating on the thing that's already been declared horrible.
But the second you turn that critical eye onto a book the majority loves, A Sacred Cow, that's when it's forbidden. And you're in for a world of trouble.
And we saw a really brutal, real-time example of this. There was a huge book talker, built her whole platform on being honest but really enthusiastic, and she critiqued the finale of this massively popular duology.
Right, and she loved the first book. She was a fan.
Exactly. But she felt the second one was a letdown, and she didn't just say that. She gave detailed, specific pacing issues, character choices that felt off.
And her critiques were, they were spot on. They were the exact same things people were saying privately in DMs. She just said them out loud.
And the reaction was just immediate. She was absolutely creamed online.
It was awful.
Yeah.
The attacks weren't about her arguments, they were about her. They said she was too dumb to understand the book.
Or that she just didn't have the reading comprehension. Or, my favorite, that she was just making up controversy to get attention.
And that proves the point so clearly. It's not about the why anymore. You can have the most well-reasoned, articulate critique in the world, but if it's aimed at a sacred cow, people will just tell you you're wrong and that you're a bad person.
It becomes a matter of social survival, not literary.
Which is why we have to connect this to the bigger picture. This is not just a book thing. This is about stan culture in general.
It's the exact same psychological mechanism you see everywhere.
It's this tendency to over-identify with media. Whether it's an author, a movie franchise, a musician, it becomes part of your identity.
So when someone criticizes that media, it doesn't feel like they're criticizing a book. It feels like they're attacking your taste, your judgment.
And the reaction is to circle the wagon. It's this unspoken message of, we're going to eat you alive if you come for our thing.
And the critic is immediately labeled, they're a hater, they're anti-feminist or anti-joy. They just don't get it. You see it with Swifties, you see it with Marvel fans.
It's a way to nullify the criticism before it even lands. You're not a critic, you're an outsider. Your opinion doesn't count.
And this whole mindset has seeped into professional media, too. You see the rise of all this fluff content.
Like the actors on actors interviews.
Exactly, or musicians interviewing other musicians. It's not journalism. It's a safe space designed to be a commercial.
It's just a bunch of people complimenting each other. No one is ever going to ask a hard question about a weird artistic choice or a plot hole. It's all about avoiding any kind of friction.
And I think because reading is so personal, so internal, that feeling gets amplified. You live with a book inside your head for days. So when someone publicly dislikes it, it feels like a much deeper violation than, say, arguing about a football.
So given all that pressure, we have to ask the big question.
Yeah.
What is the actual practical value of the negativity that everyone is trying to police?
Let's get into that. Section 2, the utilitarian value of negative feedback.
We actually asked our audience about it, and the reasons why people actively seek out negative reviews were so consistent and so practical.
And the number one reason, by a long shot, was about detail, and the consensus is that negative reviews are almost always more detailed than positive.
Weird paradox of positivity, right?
It really is. When someone gives a book 5 stars, it's their new favorite, they get intentionally vague. They say things like, I can't say more, you have to experience it, or it's better if you go in blind.
They're trying to protect the experience for other readers, which is nice, but not very helpful.
But with a negative review, all of that goes out the window. It's so much easier to articulate what you didn't like, to point to the specific pacing problem on page 200, or the clunky dialogue, or the inconsistent character arc.
One of our listeners put it perfectly. They said, positivity is abstract. Negativity, I've got words. Negativity, I've got fingers to point.
I love that. And it connects directly to this other, the popcorn book.
This is so important. It's so easy to give a 5-star review to a book you didn't think about at all, simply because you were, quote, entertained.
Right. If the only bar you have to clear is, did this keep me occupied 2 hours, then the whole idea of take part.
And this brings us to the perfect, almost legendary example of this problem, the book Metal Sling.
Ah, yeah. A book that got just a ridiculous number of 5-star. People were entertained.
But if you applied even a tiny bit of critical thinking to it, the book it disintegrated. The writing was fundamentally, technically flawed.
We're not talking about subjective things like not liking a character. We're talking about basic story structure completely broken.
Characters would suddenly have skills they never learned. The dialogue was like robots talking, and the world building.
Oh, the world building was a mess. People were supposedly in this post-apocalyptic wasteland for months, but there was no explanation for how they got food or water or any basic logistics that just shatter your immersion if you're paying attention.
And that's the danger. If we only allow positive reviews, if the only metric is was it fun, then we risk our entire reading culture becoming nothing but these popcorn books.
You lose the ability to talk about what makes good writing, what makes for for thoughtful storytelling or rigorous world building. That distinction is so critical for the art form to grow.
If surface-level entertainment is all that matters, then quality just becomes an afterthought. Publishers will just churn out trendy, unedited books to meet that demand.
And another huge value people mentioned was just validation, community.
Yeah. Oh, this is a big one. It is such a relief to find out you're not the only person who hated a really popular book.
You start to feel like you're going crazy. Like, did I read a different book than everyone else?
For me, that book was The 7-Year Slip. Everyone adored it, and I truly could not stand it. I found the main character infuriating. I felt so alone in that.
And what did you do?
I went straight to the 1-star Goodreads reviews and finding my people there, people who articulated all the same frustrations I had. It was just this huge wave of confirmation.
That confirmation is so important. It stops you from doubting your own critical judgment. It reminds you that taste is subjective, but also that structural flaws are often pretty objective.
And then there's the really practical side. For those of us who treat this like a job, it's about saving our audience time and money.
That's a core function of a reviewer. If you have the time to read 150 books a year, you're acting as a filter for someone who can only read 10. Your negative reviews are a service.
Which flows right into the next point.
Yeah.
Negative reviews are the best tool for figuring out a reviewer's taste profile.
It's how you calibrate. You might find a reviewer, let's call her Reads with Rachel, and you know that if Rachel likes a book, you're going to love it. That's great.
But the negative match is even more power. If you find a reviewer who consistently hates the exact same things you hate, maybe it's slow pacing or a certain trope, you are golden. They become your most reliable guide.
It's the ultimate de-influencing content. In a world where it feels like you're constantly being sold something, even when it's not a sponsored, a negative review just feels more honest.
It feels authentic. And let's be real, there's also the entertainment factor.
We can't ignore that. A well-written, witty, negative review can be incredibly entertaining. It feels like good gossip from someone who's actually...
Totally. But this is where we have to draw a line between genuine, nuanced critique and just hating on it.
Right. A negative review isn't always a 1-star trash fire. A 3-star review is now negative, just means it was pretty good. That's most.
And the key is being able to hold two ideas. You can love the experience of reading a book while also acknowledging its flaw. This is the whole brain-off fun versus brain-on critique thing.
You have agreed to...
Ollie Hazelwood's made. I was in a massive reading slump, and that book was exactly what I needed. I had a hootin' and a hollerin' good time reading it. I laughed, I binged it, pure fun.
So you rated the experience highly?
5 stars for the experience. But does that mean I think it's a masterpiece of literary fiction? No.
Right. If you put your critical brain on, you can see the flaws.
The world building was thin, the cult storyline was barely there, the plot was just a vehicle for the romance. I can see all of that. I can acknowledge that it's, technically not great writing in parts.
And that's the nuance we're losing. You can say, I loved this flawed thing, and here's why it was flawed, and here's why I loved it anyway. That's a mature way to engage with art.
Exactly. My enjoyment of it doesn't mean your critique of its structure is a personal attack on me. And that's what we need to get back to.
Which brings us to the really novel part of this whole 2026 debate. The extra spicy twist.
War on DNFing.
Let's get into section 3, the DNF debate, beyond quality.
This part really confused the backlash against talking about books you did not finish, because so often DNFing has absolutely nothing to do with the quality of the book.
Not at all.
I mean, I DNF'd The Count of Monte Cristo. Am I saying it's a bad book? Of course not. It's a classic.
So why did you stop?
It was a 1,200-page library book, and my loan expired. The author's not going to be hurt by my time management.
And that's a perfect example. We can really break down DNF reasons into 2 big groups, external and internal. And the external ones have 0 to do with the author's skill.
Okay, so external time constraints, like my library, or maybe you have a 700-page fantasy book, but a work deadline, you have to put it.
Then there's mental capacity, your attention span. Sometimes you're just not in the right headspace for a dense, chunky book, intense word building.
Or maybe you're going through a tough time and you just can't handle a sad book right now. It's about your own life, not the book's quality.
And the most important external reason is probably content concerns for men.
The example of Butter by Asako Yuzuki is so powerful here. It was this hyped Japanese murder mystery about a woman who kills men by cooking for them. Sounds amazing.
But for one reader we heard from, the incredibly detailed descriptions of food and restrictive eating started triggering her history with an eating disorder.
So she had to stop. That's not a choice. That's an act of self-care. It's a necessary boundary.
To suggest that she shouldn't talk about that experience because it might be negative is it's absurd, and frankly, it's cruel. It dismisses her reality entirely.
And then you have the internal reasons, which are more about the book itself.
Right. This is your classic critique stuff. The pacing is just dragging, the characters are flat, or the dialogue is terrible.
Maybe it has a really harmful portrayal of a group of people. Or the structure is just weird and keeps pulling you out of the story.
Or the worst sin of all, boring.
It's just boring. But whether the reason is internal or external, Sharing DNFs does the same job as a negative review. It helps people gauge your taste, and it saves them time.
And when someone shared that story about DNFing butter, it was so validating for other listeners who had had similar experiences with it made them feel seen.
And here's a cool insight someone shared. A DNF list also shows what books a reviewer was interested enough in to even pick up. So if you have similar taste, it can actually help you expand your own to-be-read.
We also heard from a surprising number of aspiring writers.
Oh, this was fascinating.
Yeah, they said they specifically watch DNF and negative review videos to learn about their craft. They see what makes a reader put a book down for good, and they use that to avoid the same pitfalls in their own right.
So when we come back to that core argument that sharing this stuff is harmful, you really have to question that. Is it really impossible for someone to just scroll past an opinion they don't like?
It all comes down to media literacy. You, the consumer, have to be able to recognize the source.
You have to know that I'm probably going to have a good time with an Ali Hazelwood book, even if it's got flaws, because I love her specific thing. That context is everything.
Now, we do need to be clear. There is etiquette. We are not advocating for cruelty.
Never, ever tag an author in a bad review. That is not critique. That is harassment, period.
And you have to be able to spot bad faith content. A review that's just designed to attack the person, not the art.
But the solution to bad manners isn't to just stop talking. This whole idea of if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all is just fatal to criticism when you apply to art.
It leads to stagnation.
Yeah.
And that cultural pressure is what we really need to dig into.
Let's do it. Section 4, the death of criticism and its cultural blowback. We need to look at what other art forms have gone through.
The parallels with music criticism are just undeniable. There was a great article in The New Yorker, How Music Criticism Lost Its Edge, that maps this out perfectly.
And it talks about the history of Pitchfork, right? How they used to be famous for these really harsh, scathing reviews.
Oh, yeah, they'd give albums a 2 out of 10 without blinking. But now, if a major artist gets less than a 7, the critic gets terrorized on Twitter. So there's this huge pressure to just inflate all the scores.
There's that great anecdote in the article that just captures the whole shift. It was from 2004 between a Pitchfork critic, Amanda Petrusik, and the musician Ryan Adams.
Right. She had written this absolutely brutal review of his album, called it vain and entirely lifeless.
And then he asked to be interviewed by her, which is a power move.
It is, but she stood her ground. She didn't back down. She didn't soften her opinion, even talking to him face to face. And his conclusion was amazing. He basically said, records don't really hurt anybody, and neither do reviews.
That's separation. The art is here, the egos and sales are over there, and they're separate things. That was a moment of clarity.
Now contrast that with today. Can you even imagine a critic sitting down with, say, Taylor Swift after giving her album a bad review and standing firm on, yeah?
Absolutely not. It's impossible. It would be a PR catastrophe. The fans would mobilize. The critic's career could be in jeopardy.
We even saw that weird forced positivity moment with Taylor Swift herself with the Cats movie.
Oh, right. The interviewer was going on and on about how much they loved cats, and Taylor, who was in the movie, just had this look on her face and said, "You did, really?"
You could just tell she knew it was phony. She knew the person was just trying to be nice because they felt they had to be.
So what's driving this? What changed?
It's social media. The source material puts it perfect. The virtual intimacy of these platforms has slowly erased the distinction between talking about somebody and talking to them.
That is it, 100%. Because authors and artists are so online now, when you post a review, it feels like you're yelling it directly into their ear, even if you don't tag them.
And that feeling, that perceived connection, creates a massive chilling effect. It makes it incredibly difficult to talk about art objectively. You're forced to speak different.
And that leads to the final nail in the coffin for criticism, this idea that our tastes have a right not to be criticized. It's the modern version of don't yuck my yum.
And if you believe that, then criticism itself becomes impossible. It becomes just bad manners to dislike a popular superhero or a poorly written bestseller because lots of people enjoyed it.
This isn't even a new problem in the literary world. Way back in 1959, the critic Elizabeth Hardwick was complaining about excessive coziness, how reviewers who were also authors were afraid to criticize their peers.
She said, sweet, bland comment, and that was...
And we're seeing the real-world consequences. Look at the world of dance. There are almost no professional dance critics left. The Atlantic called that a blow to the art form itself.
Because criticism keeps an art form, health pushes it forward.
And film critics are in the same boat. A.O. Scott, the former critic for The New York, said he had to contend with fandoms that were based on conformity, obedience, group identity, and mob behavior.
You're not having a debate with a fandom. You're fighting a tribe. They're not there to discuss. They're there to defend. And that pressure just silences any real challenging critique.
Which brings us to our last section, section 5, art, audience, and the creative stake. We have to come back to this idea that art and criticism should have a symbiotic relationship.
The critic's job was never just to say, thumbs up or thumbs down. It was to give the audience a language to talk about what they were seeing or reading, to help them articulate why they felt the way they did.
It forces you to look at art in a totally different way. But when you lose that critical conversation, you lose something in the audience, too.
You lose what the writer Fran Lebowitz calls connoisseurship.
This was such a fascinating point. She was talking about the cultural impact of the AIDS crisis and how we didn't just lose artists, we lost an audience.
She argued that having a high level of connoisseurship, a really smart, discerning audience that demanded quality, is exactly as important as having great artists.
That is such a profound concept. The quality of the art depends on the quality of the audience. If the audience will clap for anything, the artist has no reason to get better.
Lebowitz has this incredible quote: "If everyone's a DJ but no one dances or earnestly cares about them, everything has to be broader."
That's it. The pressure is no longer to make the best work. It's to make the most visible, the most immediately clickable thing.
And this is where we have to bring in Roland Barthes and the death of the author. Once the art is out in the world, it's not for the author anymore. It's for the reader.
Right. The whole point of a review is to help the reader, not to manage the author's feeling. This obsession with not hurting the author is completely missing the point of what art is for.
If art can't stand up to a little bit of critique, maybe it wasn't ready to be out.
And the result of all this misplaced kindness, this pressure to appease everyone, is that we just get slop.
That's what it is. Artists feel this pressure to do whatever possible to be seen and heard, not their best work out of love. The goal becomes engagement, not
Even on a micro level, you see it with YouTubers.
Yeah.
The question isn't what's the most meaningful thumbnail, it's what's the most clickable thumb.
But there are artists who are actively pushing back against, who are challenging their audience.
The example of the musician Rosalia's new album is perfect.
It was not an easy listen. It was this wacky, incredible piece of art that wasn't an instant bop. It demanded that you pay attention.
And she said that was intentional. She said she was asking a lot of her audience because she wanted people to challenge themselves to listen, to engage with art on a deeper level than just instant gratification.
And that's what's at stake. If the community only demands easy, positive, instantly likable things, then we're going to get slop. Criticism is the tool we have to demand better. It's what keeps the connoisseurship alive.
Okay, let's wrap this up. Final takeaway.
I think what this all comes down to is that criticism, even negative reviews, teaches us how to articulate our own. It helps us understand what we mean when we say good writing.
And weirdly, it helps us find more books we love. Because once you know what you don't like with incredible specificity, you can find what you do like.
You move past just looking for a romance and you start looking for a specific prose style or a certain kind of world building. Your reading life gets richer.
It helps us form our own tastes instead of just being told what to like.
And that's the big theme, is social media is constantly screaming at you about what you're reading, what's popular. And in that noise, give up so much of our personal power to just figure out what we genuinely enjoy for ourselves.
Criticism is how we get that power.
Now, we have to say it one more time. This does not mean being respect and kind. Critique the art. Never, ever attack.
But the fact that this whole debate shifted from something silly like reading speed to this really deep philosophical question about the value of criticism, that tells you something is really shifting in the community.
There's a real anxiety there. So we want to leave you with one final provocative thought.
If a high level of connoisseurship from the audience is what makes art flourish, and genuine challenging critique is how you build that connoisseurship.
What price is the book community, and really all fandoms, paying by choosing communal peace and positive affirmation over genuine, necessary, and sometimes uncomfortable analysis?
Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time.